Let me ask you, Naomi, I mean, like I said, you're 94 years old. Is there any great burning question in life that I find it hard to believe you haven't found the answer to everything, given how massive your brain is. But is there anything left that you would love to know the answer to, that you've never, to your satisfaction, worked out?
Well, moving to another domain of intellectual, professional pursuits, there is a question that was asked by Galileo, then by his associates in the 17th century, which is as yet unanswered. How are you and I able to do what we are now doing? How, as Galileo put it, how is it possible with a finite number of symbols to produce an infinite number of thoughts and even use these symbols to allow others who have no access to our minds to access to their inner workings of our minds? How is this miracle possible? Was raised by Galileo, studied by major concern for Descartes, other leading figures in the 17th century began working on it. We now understand some aspects, but the major questions are not only unanswered, but we don't even know how to approach an answer. So that's one of many leading problems.
And when you look back at your life, what has been the greatest moment of your life?
I can't say. A lot of great moments.
If I had the power to let you relive one moment in your life, what would you go for?
Some moments are almost miraculous, like the birth of my first child, say, many other things like it. But I don't see much point talking about my personal life and situation. There are more important things in the world.
Do you feel the world is a better place than when you were born, or a worse place?
Well, I was born in 1928, right before the Great Depression, which of course was far more severe than anything we've suffered recently. As I was growing up as a young child, fascism was spreading through Europe. It looked unstoppable. Actually, the first article I remember writing for a school newspaper began with the fall of Austria, Czechoslovakia. Barcelona was right after the fall of Barcelona with Franco, when it seemed as if the fascist plague was unstoppable. Those were very dark moments. Another extremely dark moment was August 6th, 1945, when I was then 16 years old enough to understand. It was clear that humans were moving towards the capacity to destroy everything that came a few years later. Has the world changed for the better? In many ways. Take the United States, country I know best. Go back to the 1960s. The 1960s, the United States had anti-miscegenation laws that were so extreme that the Nazis refused to accept them. In the 1960s, the United States did have federally subsidized housing, but it was segregated, not for blacks. That meant a black man could maybe get a job in an auto plant during the boom period of the 50s, but he couldn't use it to acquire wealth. Wealth in the United States mainly means property, enormous legacy of hundreds of years of slavery and horrors. Women's rights were not accepted. In fact, in the 1960s, in principle, the United States still accepted British common law, which the founding fathers had explicitly accepted. And according to that law of Blackstone, women were not persons. They were property, the property of the father handed over to the husband. Well, that was eroded over the years, but it literally wasn't until 1975 that the Supreme Court formally determined that women are persons. They're peers. They have a right to appear in federal trial. Well, all of these things have changed. Those are all steps forward. It's now called wokeness, but it's steps forward towards a more caring, egalitarian, just society. Sometimes goes overboard, but on